launch the rocket.
Launch the kanks.
Hello, guys. Wow, look at this. We are back. Welcome back to Pencil to Pencil, your favorite live cast featuring three count 'em, expert cartoonists coming live on your Videoscope. I'm very excited to be back in your loving arms. My name is JAMAR NICHOLAS. I am one of your expert cartoonists. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do, and then I'll pass the microphone. I am a cartoonist in good standing. The second vice president of the National Cartoonist Society. That's got to stand for something, right, Steve Conley?
For sure.
And also the chapter chair of the Philadelphia Wing. Speaking of wing, go birds. On top of all those other lovely things, I have a series at Scholastic underneath the Graphix imprint. Leon the Extraordinary is the name. Worst Friends Forever is my current book. Please go cop it. Why don't you? Guys, I would be... You got me with that, Steve. I wasn't ready. Guys, I would be remiss if I did not introduce my cohort, co-conspirator, and co-conquistador. I don't know. I lost the last part. This guy is doing a tour of the Carolinas with the newly won World Heavyweight Championship of webcomics. You know him and love him, and you may fear him. By God, is Stone Cold Steve Conley. What's up, Steve Conley?
Gentlemen, so good to see you.
Yes.
I'm so excited for tonight's episode. This is going to be great. For folks who don't know who I am, my name is Steve Conley. I create the 34th favorite webcomic of yours. It's called The Middle Age. It's over on the Webtoons, the Tapas, the Go Comics.
Yes.
Now on fables.pro and over on globalcomics.com as well. And you can check it out at steveconley.com as well. And I also make TTRPG stuff. If you play the Dungeons and the Dragons, check out steveconley.com. And the next one's called Stabracadabra.
I love it.
I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the Tower of Power, the maestro of mark making, Darkhawk's daddy. That's hard to say. Darkhawk's daddy, Mr. Mike Manley.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
I am Daddy of the Hawk.
Daddy Hawk.
Daddy Hawk, and I am a 41-year veteran of the comics industry. I've also worked in animation and kids' books over my long career, and I thought I would show something that I found today from my childhood. Since I've been told I've drawn other people's childhood. This is something from my childhood before I drew your childhood. So here is a drawing.
What?
From 1978.
Wow.
My very heavy Neil Adams phase.
Wearing your influences on your pointy sleeves.
Right. I guess I was sort of giving him sort of like the Bernie Wrightson long ears, because I think Bernie Wrightson was giving Batman the long ears. So yeah, and look how well that old Zipatone held up.
I was about to say that Zip, right?
Yeah, that old Zipatone held up really. It hasn't yellowed, or so like the really old Zipatone that I have. Some of it is really yellowed. And then some of it looks like I did it yesterday. So I thought I would show that. That was kind of...
That's fantastic.
So I was 16 or 17, depending upon the time of year. That was done in 1978.
I was going to say, like, how well the blacks have held up. What ink were you using back then? I'm sure it's
regular Indian ink. Regular, like Higgins or Pelican or whatever.
Wow, yeah, I'm sure.
That in high school.
That's fantastic.
Sophomore high school, I think.
Mike, do you have a lot of your old artwork, or some stuff just kind of like faded into the dust?
I have some stuff. You know, I have a big box of stuff that's up in the attic that I haven't gone through in 30 years that I lived in this house. So I need to go back through it. But yeah, I still have stuff from high school. I even have some stuff that I did with those old cancer-causing design magic markers.
Oh, the designers.
Oh yeah, man. I remember. Some of that stuff probably still has that smell. It had the Beskine in it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's like one of the most carcinogenic substances. But those markers are fantastic.
I love that. I'm sure it killed people, but it's beautiful.
Right. They'd shrink your kidneys, but
that's you know what's almost as stinky as the design markers were chart packs.
Yeah. My grandfather, who was, I said before, was a sign painter. He did calligraphy.
Mm-hmm.
He had the old magic markers,
like Magic Marker brand, Magic
like very short.
Yeah.
And they had the nib on it. You could pull it out of the bottle, like it went into the bottle, and you could cut it. So he could chisel it to do lettering.
Right.
He was a display letterer, so he had all these great old. What I really wish I had, and I don't know whatever happened to it. He used to have one of those great, he had like an 8-foot drafting table that could go up straight or lay down flat that he could roll out the paper on to do his signs. I wish I had that table now. That you can't make any good tables like that anymore.
Yeah, they were like bigger than a drafting table. They were like a sign painting table, right? Part of my old lore is that I used to work at Home Depot in the summers because my job at the college kicked me out at the end of every commencement, so I had to go find a summer thing. And I was doing the signs at the Home Depot. I was in the back of one of those really big boards with the almost like that wedge tip, like big paintbrush, and just making nines. I could make a 9 like nobody's business, man.
Everything costs $9.
My 8s were dope, man. I love it. But yeah, I know the exact table you're talking about. How did we get here? That's fantastic. Steve, you got anything you want to share from your childhood? And then we'll get the
Nothing's unrelated. Nothing. I did those markers, those design markers, though. There was an attachment that to turn it into an airbrush, which basically attached an aerosol can to the tip, so it made it even more.
Oh my God! Yeah,
more aerosol.
Just breathing that poison straight in.
Poison.
Cloud.
But you know what is not poisonous, ladies and gentlemen? Pencil to pencil, you guys. That's right.
It's the antidote.
It's the antidote to your Wednesday hump day blues. Guys, if you've never seen the show before, you're in for a treat. This is a live cast featuring real professional working cartoonists having conversations with other professional working cartoonists. What a concept. It has been repeated on the internet, but I don't think it's been repeated as well as what we did.
Our coffee.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. It is. It's 8 o'clock. It's time for my last coffee of the night. Where you, if you're watching live, get to interact with us. So if you're in the chat, type in, say hello, and ask us a question. Ask our guests a question. I can't guarantee that your question will get on the air, but do it anyway. All right, guys. I'm really excited for our guests tonight. Cartooning is its own kind of community inside itself. And what really makes me excited to talk shop with other cartoonists is almost like a language that only we really understand, almost like a thieves' cant. Dungeons and Dragons, Steve Conley, like a thing that we do that other people may not get. And sometimes when I'm like boiling this stuff down for people, they'll say things really kind of like open-ended about like, oh, cartooning. We talked about this the other day. That must be fun. Like, yes, sure, it's fun. That's great, but it's also not even a job. It's kind of your life, right? It's not even a career. It is it's the air we breathe. So I've got some really great air breathers on the show for you tonight. I think you're gonna have a great time. Let me cue up the thing here, guys.
Full of Bestine and old Zipatone.
Talking about breathing in fumes, guys. Raina Telgemeier and Scott McCLOUD are here tonight. Oh my goodness. Now we have sound effects with this thing. I will not do an applause button. I will just tell you straight up how excited I am to talk to these human beings.
The old ladies like a Monty Python clapping.
if you're new to this and you followed these awesome people onto the show via the slipstream, guys, we do this every week. We have expert cartoonists every week. We are expert cartoonists. We can talk to each other every week. But that archive is rich. It's a rich vein of
5 years.
We got you guys through the pandemic.
Feral spoon.
That's right. You owe us. We got you through the lockdown. You owe us these eyeballs tonight. So, all right, I've talked enough. Let's get ready for rendering. Let me get my assets together here. And guys, please, welcome to Pencil to Pencil. All right, welcome to Pencil to Pencil, Raina and Scott. Ping! Yeah, I did it.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi.
Hey, hello. Guys, I hope that didn't take too long, but we got to warm up the crowd
No worries.
for you. Yeah, we have to warm up the crowd. I'll start with something really easy. How are you guys doing? Just not in, like in a world sense or a general sense. How are you feeling tonight?
Pretty good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, life is nothing if not interesting.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's been a wild time. A lot of changes in my life, some of which I can talk about, some of which I can't.
Sure,
but it's been really exciting. It was exciting working with Raina. It's been exciting seeing the comics world through Raina's eyes, because I'm getting to meet a lot of Raina's fans.
Yeah.
So I'm experiencing that like this. This is the world that just was born recently. I'm like 10 seconds after the Big Bang, you know, and it's a really exciting time for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Raina, what's going on with you? How you doing these days?
Well, Scott and I are a week away from our second leg of the Cartoonists Club tour.
Yeah.
We've had like a summer break. They split our tour up into 2 chunks.
Yeah.
So, Scott, I miss you.
I miss you too.
We had such a fun time on the first leg of the tour. The book came out in April.
Yeah.
We got to just like celebrate on tour together for a full month. We went to, we didn't go to Comic-Con. I went to Comic-Con.
Yeah, I had to cancel at the last minute because I got sick.
Yeah. And then we've been like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, it's been such a like quiet summer, and now we get to go like hang out again for another few weeks, and it's gonna be so much fun.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I pointed the
There
wrong way.
you go.
I just gotta give a quick bit of trivia. The reason we broke the tour into 2 parts was so that we didn't have to sign 20,000 book plates in like a month and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we came up
Correct.
with this wonderful solution of like having two chunks.
Yeah, that's just the volume of books and material and humans that you guys are bouncing off of is pretty miraculous. And that was probably one of the first things I wanted to ask you guys about is touring and kind of talking about this new world. And the new world I'm kind of talking about is kind of like the traditional book space tour. All of us are cartoonists who came up through the dirt, right? It was kind of like, this was never a part of the conversation 25 years ago. It's like, oh, well, you know what? We got to get ready for tour in next season.
Yeah, you just did cons. You didn't do tours.
Yeah.
We should set that groundwork, though. I mean, we all came up in that world. You are correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys all laid the groundwork for that. I mean, Scott, when did you do your first comic convention?
1984. Well, as a behind the table. 1984 was the first time that I set up, and it was one of the little cons in New York that I had been on the other side of the table for a while, gone to a few times, and then it's like, ooh, look at this! Look, I moved 6 feet, and that made all the difference.
And when did you go on a book tour when Understanding Comics was published?
Well, actually, it's kind of weird because I sort of did, but only when it was published by HarperCollins, which is a book publisher who took over the publishing of it a year after it came out as in the comics world. It wasn't so much a tour. I would just go to, like, I went to the Capital City Trade Show, which no longer exists, and things like that, comics things. But then all of a sudden, I'm starting to head into that book world, thanks to my agent Judith Hansen, who is more connected to that. But in those days, that was really unusual for comics people to be part of that whole book thing and to go city to city to bookstores and stuff. That was really exciting.
I mean, I did my first comic convention in 2002. It was the Mocha Arts Festival. I exhibited alongside like my fellow comics and illustration students from the School of Visual Arts. And then I think like maybe a few months later, I did Ape in San Francisco. And so I started doing indie shows. I started doing Comic-Con in San Diego. Like and those were like the years where I met Scott. And we've been talking about this for the past couple of years. And just as we've been sort of working alongside each other, just talking about the Cartoonist Club and sort of the past 20 years and just this culture and this community that we've both been a part of, and the wave of cartoonists that have come up alongside me, and the new generations that have come up in that time. And just, you know, it's just this cross-pollination that's been so lovely to experience and be a part of, and how much has happened and how mainstream comics have gone, and how we can't like separate any of them from each other. And just, you know, there was the whole like Borders bookstore thing that happened, and there was manga, and it's just like someone's gonna write a book about this someday, and there's gonna be so many chapters. But I mean, this is kind of what the Cartoonists Club is about.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is also paying tribute to Scott himself, who wrote a book in 1992 that I read when I was in high school. And I was like, this explains so much of what I've been trying to explain to people about why comics are so amazing. And, you know, I'm like this nerd who understands the value of this medium. And I want to tell everybody about it, but they're just not ready. And I've been trying to like carry that message forward for so long. And, you know, I make the books, I make the stories, I make these things that now like millions of kids out there have read. But when those kids then want to continue like relaying that message, I'm like, they need a book like Understanding Comics. They need something that they can point to. So this idea has just been like in my head for so long. So that was that's the origin story, is that I pitched this idea to Scott 6 years ago. I was like, what if I just put my head together with your head? What if we just became the two-headed monster of Raina and Scott and made something that was a mashup of both of our things that we do? And thank you, Scott, for saying yes. Thank you, Winter, Ivy, and
Scott. Yeah, all three.
Yeah, they
my
were
kids
there when I put them up against the wall, and I was like, oh, we have to do this.
Yeah, my family was like, you're doing this. Absolutely. This is at one of the Scholastic parties. And, you know, what's great is from the beginning, it was like Raina saw, like from the very beginning, oh, look, there's a hole in the universe where this book could be, right? That we need something like that. Seeing those holes in the universe, it's really important. This is part of the story of comics is a story of potential, right? A thing that could be. Right, all these stories and all these books and all these characters that we see in our heads first, and nobody knows they're out there. And we need to. It takes time to bring these things into the world, but also so we see a possibility for the art form too. And so Raina is on that same path that Will Eisner was on when he was like saying, oh, comics are an art form in like 1950, and all of his friends in comics were making fun of him. And it's like, come on, kid. You know, and it's like, but it might take decades, but you can bring that about. What's really great now is that one of the things that Raina saw early on with this book was not only that we could bring something into the world, but it could do for kids what my book had done for Raina, what Eisner's books and a million others had done for me. It's like that generational continuity. It's like we're sending it down through the ages, you know, just one generation after another.
This is where I'm like, God, I hope we're not like overselling it.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. And you know, I was walking my dog and I was thinking about just like the cultural impact of what all of you have done, and just thinking about, you know, to Scott's credit, almost every cartoonist of my age, and I'm not trying to out your age, Scott. Well, you know, it's like, well, what's on the shelf? How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, Understanding Comics. It's just like boom, boom. And you know, and then the next phase is like almost every kid I know who likes graphic novels has read Smile, at least Smile. And that carry that tradition on is it's pretty brilliant to think, let's just put these two things together. It's the perfect Reese's cup that you guys have just made.
And so much came together in the last 20 years too. I mean, like you look at the story of the last 20 years, which is basically the lifetime of the graphics imprint and a lot of RAINA stuff. Look at the top row of your screen right now, and you've got kids comics, you got web comics, and you've got superhero comics. Mike and I worked together on Superman stories, and like think of those three worlds, right? And that is not even counting like the big boy graphic novels and stuff like Persepolis and Mouse and everything.
Right.
Like all of that stuff was really came into being and came into the mainstream just in the last 20 years. So much has happened.
And I think that as that happened, also as a result of people growing up reading comics, but comics was not a bad thing. Like geek culture became mainstream culture, just became culture, right? Because my first Comic Con I went to, as a kid, was probably 1975. And then I also went to like a sci-fi convention, and they were very different. Like the sci-fi people didn't mix with the comic people, right? And when you went to the comic thing, the underground people didn't mix with the above ground people, didn't necessarily mix with the strip people, right? It was like everybody had like the little area, but probably starting in the 80s that started to melt. And by the 2000s, it had really melted. And then you add manga on top.
Yeah.
Right, which you start talking about like the Borders girls, right? The kids that I used to see when I would go to Borders, there was always a bunch of girls in there reading the Tokyo Pop stuff or whatever. There's always a bunch of kids in there reading.
Yeah.
And I think I went to one SPX in, I think like 2005. I did a MoCA, but there was still a little bit of a separation between people like me who mostly did mainstream stuff and people who did stuff for Fantagraphics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And nobody really was throwing around graphic novel as much. Like now, that's like everybody says graphic novel, right? And then I remember because I was in school, I had gone back to college. That's when colleges started saying, they wouldn't say comic, they'd say graphic novel. Oh, we have a class on graphic novels, right? Now, like it's like everything, everywhere, all at once. Like all worlds kind of exist all at one time, right? Like you get the superhero stuff, we got the stuff that you guys do. I think cartooning probably also helped by the success of the movies. It's like, it's okay to say you like comics. And there's whole generations who've grown up reading your guys' stuff that never had to defend it. That's also a big difference.
Right. Right.
Nobody. I think understanding comics did defend it. I like that comics was on the title. It wasn't like it never. There was a push for a little while there. People trying to come up with some other names for it or something like that. I'm like, no. It's perfect.
Well, and the idea of graphic novels didn't replace comics. It's just comics was the art form, and then the art form, just like any good art form, had different genres, had different shapes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like I remember when I was in school, it was funny because I went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, who in the past had an illustration program, but that died out, I think, in the late 50s, early 60s. Then they decided that they wanted to bring in an illustration track. And one of the first things they did when they were consulting me about doing it was they wanted to bring in a thing on graphic narrative, right? Mm-hmm. So they wouldn't say comic, they would say graphic narrative. And I go, well, you mean comics, right? Well, yes, but you want to use the expensive $5 word graphic narrative. So it's funny how in academia, there was also a big change. Libraries, all that stuff, which you guys are very, very familiar with.
Oh yeah. Well,
The Graphic
libraries have been a
Narrative
big
Club
part of our
doesn't-
tour.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Scott.
Oh no, that was actually I was I'm sorry, I forget which way to point. I was actually tossing that to Raina because I wanted Raina to tell you all about this wonderful intersection with libraries that we got to have during our tour.
And I will, but I'm going to tell you that I have a group chat that includes several librarians, just like friends of mine, and they were having an argument about whether the Cartoonists Club should be shelved in fiction or nonfiction. Because there's so many points about it that are like educational and learning, and they were like, yeah, but kids are going to look for it in fiction. I know, but technically, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Shouldn't there be a third category for this? Or just like comics, is comics a genre or is comics a format? Like there's so much the weeds that we can get into with this, but
Right.
I think what Scott wanted me to talk about was the fact that we did visit a lot of libraries, and we were asked by the American Library Association to be I'm going to butcher it, Scott, the ambassadors of National Library Week.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think that it's almost that. It's something like that. Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were sort of national representatives for libraries during National Library Week. We got to speak at a whole bunch of libraries, including a brand new library in St. Louis that was just amazing. But it was also happening at a time when libraries were, well, frankly, under attack to some extent. And so, you know, the things that we valued so much, creativity of expression, diversity of expression, kids feeling the courage to say who they were, all of these things, it felt like there was this darkening cloud gathering over it as we were embarking on this tour. So it had a lot of extra resonance. It already would have been a wonderful and inspiring thing to do, but there was something extra there because I think all of us learned so much in libraries. And, you know, heck, my town library, I think I might have this right, I think it's right, had a copy of David Kunzel's like History of the Comics, this oversized book from University of Mississippi Press with all of these European broadsheet comics from 500 years ago. How is that even possible?
Right. I love that we can have these conversations now, you know, just even, you know, the kind of cartoon dust cloud that happens around what is this stuff, you know. And one thing I wanted to ask the both of you, because we're all very fortunate to live in this part of the timeline where everybody, for the most part, is loving the medium, right? This is great, fantastic. You're able to go on a multi-month tour and visit schools and libraries and a lot of very excited little people. But there's always a couple of angry faces in the crowd. And sometimes I forget when I go in to do my own school visits, there may be a couple of teachers on that staff that don't want anything to do with this. You know, so I wanted to know if you could speak, not that this needs to be a negative thing, but like, how are you dealing with that one or two people that don't see any value in what we're doing, or even why are we paying you guys all this money to come to our school?
You first. Yeah,
Raina, is that too broad? Is that too broad?
It's pretty broad. I mean, it used to be like graphic novels aren't real reading. There's still one of those in every audience, but now I think it is turning more to like the contents of the story and less about the format itself. I guess that's progress. Sure. But you know, it's like we now have permission to take that medium and to tell all kinds of stories with it, and so we're seeing way more kinds of stories, and so therefore we're going to get pushback on all those stories, and as it should be. I'm okay with that. I want to keep pushing that envelope. We were warned about some of the stuff that we were interested in putting in our book, and I was like, screw that, we're gonna do what we want to do with this book. And I think we got what we wanted for the most part. There were a few things that we had to change at the absolute, 11-hour and 59th minute of the book. If you compare the arc of the Cartoonist Club to the final print copy of the Cartoonist Club, there's a few small differences.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be specific? Is this a Disney
I'm trying to remember what you were thinking.
I'll just let you guys go. Yeah, go for it.
I've forgotten. I've already forgotten.
If you recall, we had a spread in the back matter where we talked about the namesakes of all of our characters.
Oh,
okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, all of our characters, the kids are named after 4 cartoonists that we wanted to put a spotlight on.
Right.
Those cartoonists being Winsor McKay, who's the namesake for Michaela. Art Spiegelman is the namesake of Art. Howard Cruz, who Howard is named after, and Linda Berry is Linda's namesake. And it was just like they were little blurbs. They weren't too controversial in any way. It was just like, Howard Cruz was a prominent queer cartoonist, and he kind of pioneered that era of the 1970s, and that was about as simple as it was. But our editors were like, this might encourage kids to do some Googling, and that is true. But our attitude was like, that's awesome. Like we want kids to discover who's out there and to discover like some artists that they might not pick up.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like this is a book for middle graders, so I can see both sides of every issue. I am a Gemini, but
yeah, me too. By the way,
that's right. Bunch of Geminis in this creators corner, but so I can understand it. I didn't argue with it, but it was like the day before it went to press, so it was like, oh, man, but I have to tell you that like it's in the arc, and so much of the good feedback about it that we have on Goodreads. It's like, I am so glad that this is in the back matter. I love this. I love knowing that we know who the artists are that this is based on. Like universally beloved in the feedback on Goodreads that was in there. And now it's just not there. So that's erasure in my opinion.
Yeah, and Howard is particularly missed, I must say. We knew him personally, and he was just such a gentle soul. I remember seeing Howard on a panel, and there was a rather tall conservative children's cartoonist, who'll go unnamed, whose attitudes were very much different from Howard's on many issues of the day, let us say. And I noticed that Howard suffered gladly many of the things said, and was very, very kind and charitable in that exchange. And sadly, we lost him some years ago. But there was something else to do with that, though. I will say that, the angry face in the audience, I actually saw only one parent, and it was at our very first book signing in Dallas, where I just thought, ooh, he does not want to be here. And I don't think he wants his children to be here either. Right. But he just went through it. He toughed through it. But for the most part, I have seen parent after parent after parent after parent with their kids jumping down and excited when they would come up, get pictures with us. Yeah. And often there are fans now whose kids are fans, which is really exciting because I've seen that intergenerational thing for a long time. Raina's starting to enter that time of life where she's starting to see, the parent and the child both grew up reading her stuff. But again and again, I just see that glow. Yeah. And one of the most exciting things is when a kid comes up and says, I'm going to make comics. Sometimes they'll hand us their artwork, but even if they're just saying it, when they say it to us, when they look us in the eyes and say, I'm going to make this, I can't speak for Raina, but I know I believe it. Yeah. I feel like there's a credibility to it. There's a solidity. It's a persuasive thing when a kid tells you that. And I believe every word. I think they will. I think they will be creators of some kind before they're done.
One thing that I love about kind of like even my part in this universe of being with graphics and everything and doing a lot of school visits is, and I sometimes think about this, when I was 7, I'd never met an author, let alone a cartoonist. You know what I'm saying? And just think about the power of that, like the magnetism of just having this interaction at that young age, and kind of like what would a young Jamar be like if I met,
old Jamar?
I came through the time machine closet and met myself.
That's right. Young Jamar can't touch old Jamar.
That's where it will be a kind of a time vortex. But like just the power of just us being visible and you guys being accessible in a way that even these kids' parents probably didn't have.
Well, yeah. I mean, you go back. I didn't meet a cartoonist until I was 13, and I went to my first convention. I knew about cartoonists and I knew about animators because you'd see like The Wonderful World of Disney and they show the animators. So you knew that there were people that did that. And maybe occasionally you might see an article on like Charles Schultz or something, something like that. But actually physically meeting someone, because it's not like a baseball player, right. I mean, you go back 30 years, cartoonists were like as rare as hen's teeth. You did not see them
I love it. Yeah.
that often. So it was a big thing when you would meet someone, and you hope they're mostly nice, right? I mean, you guys are nice. Well, not all the old guys were always nice, right? There were a lot of. I don't think us cartoonists are as colorful as a lot of the old stories I hear. I think we're all like church ladies compared to some of those old guys. But yeah, I think that's very different because you could be 5 and like Dogman, and then you can meet the guy who made Dogman.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
When you were 5 and you read Peanuts, you're never going to meet, the guy who drew Peanuts.
Yeah, I was lucky. Our elementary school got Lloyd Alexander to come out, a wonderful kids writer, and one of the most amazing looking persons ever to be born. His Fluter Flam, the minstrel or whatever, is based on him, basically, I think. Look him up. Look up the face of this man, and he was a fantastic speaker. But here, this is like 10-year-old Scott. Like seeing this person and thinking, okay, this person made it, I could make it. And I was lucky because I also had a community of cartoonists around me. There were a lot of kids in the neighborhood who made art. And then I met Kurt Busick in middle school, and he's the one who got me into comic books. And he and I both went into comics. He's been writing comics as long as I've been writing and drawing them. So I had that too, that experience. It's like, there are different ways to make a connection, right? You might read a comic that's made by somebody that you feel a kinship with, that has a life something like yours, or about a story something like your story, or you may know somebody your own age and you share that experience, or you may identify with an older person, or like get to meet a pro, but like in all of these cases, the message is you can do this. And one of the things that Raina and I put into Cartoonist Club was like a throwback to how their library media specialist, Miss Fatima, how she met others who were interested in comics when she was young and going to conventions. That multi-generational thing. It makes a difference. Representation makes a difference in a lot of different ways.
Man, you're not lying, Scott McCloud.
Yeah. and the other thing is that not all of the old timers would encourage you to be a cartoonist. In fact, very much the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I even know some guys whose sons are famous cartoonists, successful cartoonists, but they were like, maybe you don't want to do this for a living. Because I also think that for that generation, it would be newspaper cartoonist was successful. Comic books,
Yeah.
nah, you know, not so, you know, especially through the 50s. Man, in the 60s it started to change with pop culture and all that stuff. But so yeah, I do think it is very different. And as you guys know, whenever you go and you do a show, you always have the parent who comes up and goes, you know, Billy or Cindy wants to be a cartoonist. Can you do this? Can you make a living? I've done those career days. I'm sure you guys have done career days where the parent comes like, oh, my kid wants to be a cartoonist, you know, and they're probably hoping that you go like, oh, don't do it, Billy. See what it's done to me. You know, I'm like a Quasimodo, but are you meeting are you seeing a lot of that on the road? Are you seeing a lot of people going, I want to do what you do?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I have a question. Well, let's break the seal, you guys. Let's break the seal with the first question.
Yay!
So, talking about superstar cartoons, hey, guess what? Scott Kurtz is here. What up, Scott? Very excited for Table Titans Club. And I think, Scott, you're on your second book, right? He has a great question for you guys. Doing Kidlit has been the most challenging and rewarding comics I've ever made. I agree with that. Do you guys feel the same way about working on these books over comics for adults? What a good, strong question, Scott. Scott, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, well, you know, in my case, what I did with Raina is different in two ways. One is the kind of a story we told, but the other way is working with another cartoonist whose home base is that, right? So Raina's the master of that particular domain, and so in many ways I was still a student, you know, like just always trying to figure it out. You know, in the first draft there were aspects of the stuff I brought in that weren't quite working, and one of the big things actually was that Raina and I were both characters in the original draft of the story, and we had to 86 ourselves because it was too teachy, you know. And it was Raina who had the insight that the story worked much better if the kids found these things out on their own. And that reflected, like, that first draft frankly, it had more me in it. It was more like my regular books, you know, where let's stand around and talk and teach. And, you know, it's like, nope. That's not the way. So for me, that was the biggest difference, because it was still about storytelling. It was still about ideas. There was a real continuity in the Cartoonist Club with the stuff I'd done before in that way. But I got to be the newbie, and that was exciting for me. I got to be the know-nothing who had to, like, sort of like get up to speed and learn the lay of the land, because this was a new, undiscovered country for me. And so I got to follow. Raina was my Sherpa through kids' comics. It was a very different way of making comics on almost every level, and that was the big difference for me.
Raina, do you have anything to...
Let's go back in time and tell 16-year-old Raina that Scott McCLOUD would call me a Sherpa. Wild. And I mean, the truth is that the only adult comics I've ever made are like the mini comics I made in college, and just like the little bits of short storytelling I did when I was first starting out. And then I jumped into making Babysitters Club comics when I was fresh out of school and just, you know, getting my professional feet wet. And then I made Smile just kind of for myself, and it was what it was. And then it became my career. So I don't have any professional experience making comics for adults. I'm scared to try at this point. So someone's going to have to teach me how to do that. And I mean, I've worked with the team at Scholastic since 2003. So I have like a really solid professional team that's taught me how to work with an editor there, and they're fantastic. I mean, Jamar and Scott can vouch for them. So, I mean, I feel like I have them so well trained into my head that I'm like, you can't put swear words in comics. Like, that's just not even allowed. So
Right.
I'm gonna have to reinvent the wheel when that time comes, if that time comes. It is. I mean, Scott Kurtz, you're not wrong that like, and I used your last name only because Scott McCloud is sitting here, and I wanted to make sure that he didn't think I was talking to him. It is so challenging and so rewarding because kids are like the hardest critics in the world, and they're possibly the smartest raters in the world too. So smart.
I would like to add that I've never gotten a crayon-colored fan letter from a 40-year-old guy with a neck beard. So kids are also good for writing you cute letters. Thanks, Scott. So
you don't want that letter, Jamar.
maybe I don't want to receive that.
Mostly harmless.
But you know what? Maybe to that thing before we just let that topic go. I've seen a lot in just kind of coming from these different camps, like like from indie comic book world, even web comics into where we are now. I think people, and I said this when Kaz is in the chat, we talk about how easy this looks to a lot of people from the outside. It's like, oh, you just do kids books. I could do a kids book, and maybe can we speak to some of the the ideas that people get wrong about what you guys do for a living?
Well, it's right there in the subtitle of Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
I like that, Raina. Okay, short and sweet. I love it.
Yeah, I think that it easy like Fred Astaire, right? It's just like that's there are many artists, in the broad sense of artists, like musicians, filmmakers, and all, that do make it look easy. And and this was another aspect of like it's in a kind of alchemy. Like it wasn't immediately apparent what the formula was. There really is no formula that I could learn from Raina. I just sort of had to vibe with it, because the ease of Raina's artwork, which does have that sort of sense that like, if a kid looks at Raina's artwork and thinks, well, I could do that, that's a good thing. Yeah. Right? Like, you're like, sure, that may not happen with the Sistine Chapel, but first of all, you shouldn't try what Michelangelo did. That was a terrible idea. Also work for hire and never work for the Pope, but that's a whole other thing. But with Raina's work, yeah, deceptively simple. I'm sure people have put those two words together to describe it. There's an ease of line. There's a sense of like the hand is not absent, right? Like there are some artists who their line is so perfect, and sometimes it's really great, but the line is so perfect that it almost feels like it came from some magical place, that it wasn't drawn by a human hand. Raina's comics look like they're drawn by a human hand, but there's such a wisdom to it. And a lot of it is like where the moments were chosen, where Raina broke it. You don't see all the panels that Raina left out. You don't see all the, the lines that she might have written. That stuff's invisible. It really is the invisible art. But what you see on the page is just as it had to be. Like that's how that panel had to be. But there's always a playfulness to the line, right? One of the most. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I do have one thing I want to say, which is that I was like, no more, I'm done. Mike Mayhack, who drew the Cleopatra in Space comics that Graphix published, he said it really well. And this is something that we always gripe about because, we put like 4 years, 5 years into writing and perfecting and coloring and like making these comics, and then they come out and we're like, finally it's done, and a kid sits down and they read it in 35 minutes. And it happens like while they're standing in the line to get the book signed. They come to the table and they slap it down on the table and they're like, well, I just bought this and I finished it while I was waiting for you to sign my book, and thank you, it's great. When is the next book coming out? And you're like, oh, that was good. But oh my God, you don't understand like the sweat and the blood that came out of my knuckle.
Yeah.
But Mike likes to say that means we did our job. We did our job well. They did not stumble over a single placement of dialogue, that every single line led their eye to the next line. And that's, that's something that Scott explains well in his work. That's something that Ernie Bushmiller did well with his work in Nancy. It's just like the economy of shape and line and paneling and everything was just where it needed to be for that kid to not stumble. And if that's what we're doing, that is so hard. That's why it took us 4 years. That's why we spent the time that we did and put the love and effort into it. And that's time so well spent.
Yeah.
You think about the rereadability of the book, because it seems like the books are just devoured again and again and again.
Yes, and they're absorbing that too. Like they don't realize it. That's the invisible part. But it's like they're getting that vibe. They're getting that flow. So when they sit down to make comics, like that is also something that they are getting, and they will be putting into whatever it is that they're doing. At least I hope.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's that kind of magical aspect of it. I think I feel like the Cartoonist Club felt like that when we were done. And that thing that you were mentioning about like taking out those stumbling blocks, those speed bumps.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just enough to just say, oh, I stopped reading, I got to take that out. It's like, no, it actually takes a long time to figure out what is it that's throwing that off, right? Like, just like going from draft 1 to draft 2 of the layouts, that was the process of like, you had to really think about it. Even like the best editors in the world told us that something wasn't quite right. And even they didn't know exactly what it was, right? And sometimes you just have to sit there staring at the wall for hours or days or weeks before you think, wait, hang on, maybe this is why I'm stopping. Maybe this is the thing that's pulling me out of the story. And what you really want, you want it to be easier to read than to not read. Or easier. Yeah, harder to not read than to read, right? That's something somebody said about Ernie Bushmiller, who we all love.
Yeah.
And you want, if a kid cracks open the book and just
they hate reading.
Right?
I hate reading.
Kids who hate reading, I love it. But if they crack open that book again, like later after reading it, you kind of want it to suddenly they'll blink and realize they've read it again. And I've had that experience with books before, but not many books do that for me. And it's been a real privilege to have a book that seems to be doing that for a bunch of readers.
It's fantastic to hear things like that from a family that I don't know what magic you waved over this book, but my kid can't put it down. It's kind of a declaration that their kid's really into it, and then they're also a little astonished that their kid is so into it. That's working on a couple of levels at the same time. So I mean, that's just really the power of what you guys are doing.
Well, they're also probably not really thinking that I'm reading this comic. They're just doing it.
Right.
Right. Like, as a kid, you don't plan your day like, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to read a comic. And then you're just going on instinct. You see a comic, you pick it up, a book, whatever, a magazine, whatever, you start reading it. If I always said it's like a magic spell. If everything is right, it's magic. You go into it, you're not aware of the fact that you're looking at all these squiggles and dots and everything. And if it's wrong, you become aware. And once you fall out of the spell, it's really hard to recover.
Yeah. And we have an extra burden in comics that you don't. If you're making a movie, movies are incredibly complicated to make. But one thing that you do have to your advantage is if you film two people sitting in a cafe with cars going by, it's going to look like two people sitting in a cafe with cars going by. You're going to be able to take it all in. We have to start from the blank page and make sure that all those lines add up to that thing, and that people quickly understand what they're seeing and what it means and why we should care. And that's like, wow, that's like we're starting. We have to go 0 to 60. We don't get that little head start of at least it looks like what it is.
Yeah.
I wanted to, since you guys are doing this, this stuff for young adults, I'm wondering if you had any theories about at what age or the sophistication of the reader at the various ages. Like, 5, maybe you just look at something. 8, you might read, but what is your attention span at 8 compared to 5? And if you feel that there's certain guidelines, because when I was a kid, you just read comics. You read Charlie Brown, or you read Spider-Man, or whatever. I don't think in the industry there was necessarily, like, I'm sure like at Scholastic, there's probably not necessarily a rule book, but maybe some guides like this kind of stuff works good with this age. This kind of stuff works with this age. So when you're working on something and you have an age range, are you considering the iconography of the graphics, the level of the graphics, and the sophistication of the graphics for that particular age group? Like, somebody who's 17 is going to like something that's different than when they were 12 and when they were 5, even though it might be the same person, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So do you guys have a guideline as far as like the level of wallpaper? You know what I mean? Is it like, should this be simpler here to absorb the narrative and more complex here to compensate for the fact that you don't necessarily have a lot of dialogue or monologue?
It's happening at the editorial level, and it's happening a little bit earlier in the process.
Yeah.
And I can mostly speak to the Babysitters Club series, and this goes back in time. So the Babysitters Club series was established in 1986, and then there was a spin-off series called Babysitter's Little Sister, which was aimed at younger readers. And I could not tell you what year that was established in. Someone else can tell me. But with the graphic novels, kind of the same thing. So they established the graphic novel series. That was me. Those started in 2006. And then they were kind of there for a few years. And then when Smile was published, they became more popular and created sort of like a surge in popularity such that I couldn't even continue doing them because they became so popular. They continued those with a bunch of different artists. And then they were like, hey, let's do the Little Sister series as graphic novels. They are shorter in length. The artwork is a little bit simpler. The character design is a little bit shorter and rounder. So the series style is aimed at younger readers specifically. And I want to say that the age range is 6 to 8. And the graphic novel series that I have been a part of is aimed at 9 to 12.
Yeah.
And then there's like, now they've established like a graphics line that's like a YA line. They don't have a Babysitters Club series for that line, but it's a little bit vague. It's very like Inside Baseball. Like you sort of have to like talk to the editorials and acquisitions editors for these kinds of things. But and Jamar and Scott and I are all firmly within the middle grade space.
Yeah.
So and as far as like the style, the contents, this like all the questions that you're asking about, and they're really good questions. It's a little bit more vague, and it's kind of case specific. But I mean, the group that we're in is firmly like the 9 to 12 space. And do you guys have anything else to add to that? I don't want to dominate it, but
go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, like, you kind of start out talking to human beings in a way, because RAINA at this point, you can depend on your instincts in a lot of ways. And you're not really thinking of it schematically. It's just like you're just telling a story that you kind of know is going to land in that middle grade space. But like for me as a newcomer, I discovered when I stepped over the line, and sometimes it's just a vibe. Like I had a character who liked another character and was just a little too intense about it. It was just like too big a deal, like, and it's like that kind of emotional intensity is not appropriate for this. That's sort of more like hormonal high schoolers. It wasn't sexual or anything. It was just like intense, right? You know, intense devotion to a person. It's like, nah, that's like, but I didn't know. You had to sort of walk over the line and say, oh, okay, now I understand where this territory was. But yeah, it's like the first thing you said, Raina, is a lot of his editorial. It's just like, they'll tell you, right? And there's a point, and this happened, I think, to manga to a degree in like recent decades, where everything was going really great, and then the publishers got smart about exactly what worked and what didn't, and gradually they could describe it and then quantify it, and then suddenly there's a rule book that's growing thicker. Scholastic so far has been really good about kind of avoiding the pitfalls of that, but it's easy to see how down the road, maybe in 10 years or maybe in 5, well, especially with the scrutiny that kids comics are having now in this political climate, it's easy to imagine a situation in which all of a sudden there are maybe a few too many rules, and the idea of what'll work and what won't starts to get a little short-sighted, because manga was tremendously diverse in its subject matter and styles. And there was a point, I'm thinking about the 2000s, just as Americans were discovering the joys of manga, that I think a lot of the manga coming out of Japan actually started to look more similar to one another. They started to converge. And to me, I always thought that would, oh yeah, the editors, they know what works now. And now there are rules, which is a shame.
Yeah, because I think, when I was a kid, you would go to the store, and it was always a crapshoot about what you would get. You could get a Sad Sack or a Rich, or
Still get some Sad Sacks right now. Okay.
Superman.
Your Sad Sacks.
Right, or a Superman or a Mad, right? I mean, they're wildly divergent. And, you're 8. So you go, Dad, give me your, Dad would give you some change out of his pocket, and you would get like a smorgasbord. So there was like, when I grew up, you just like, oh, I like peanuts, or I would get the Scholastic catalog in school, and you would order the peanuts, and it seems now that there's much more of a guardrails, or like you were saying, don't go over here, don't go over there. But even like, I suppose graphically too, they know like, well, we think kids this age prefer more rendering, and kids this age don't like as much. Like I would assume that's like the Dog Man thing, like less rendering.
Well, can we just say thank God for Dave Pilkey, because nobody would have cooked him up in a lab. No editor alive would have thought, you know what we need? We need something that looks like this. Right. No, Pilkey, as near as I can tell, Pilkey did these crazy comics, and kids just blew up. And then, everybody just looked at that and just said, well, oh, okay. All right. I guess that's a thing now. That was an original graphical voice. Yeah.
I wanted to just say one thing about one of the earlier questions, and kind of how it pertains to what we're talking about now, is thinking about back when I was doing my own kind of like indie comics, and to where I did the shift when I started doing Leon. I did a few things before that, is trying to figuring out the pacing of a page in middle grade, because I went from, say, in comics like the 6-panel grid down to, I could do 3 here or 4 here, but 6 may be way too much. So I wonder, either Raina or Scott, if even going to the Cartoonist Club, were you thinking about the pacing of the book, especially with 2 voices, kind of going at the script? How did that work out for you guys?
I'm pretty breezy. I feel like I'm 3 to 5 panels per page.
Yeah.
And I have gotten just breezier and breezier as I've gone. I leave a lot of like blank space and silent panels. And Scott tends to put a lot of word balloons into his panels. And so I think that's the only thing I really remember doing, was being like, you don't have to have every single kid speak in every single panel.
Yep.
But again, I was like, wow, I am redlining Scott McCloud's dialogue. I feel so guilty about this.
I was grateful for it. But yeah, it was, well, first of all, we left out something super important, which was the way we worked. And the way we
Right.
worked is we both write, we both draw, and we did these very sketchy layouts. And so we did 3 drafts of the book, but as layouts. So Raina would
Those
do
are
these.
thumbnails. Yeah.
We go back and forth on what we call them, but basically they were rough drawings, but there was a lot of stuff in them, right? You could tell what was going on. You could read it, right? I like to read my comics before I draw them, right? So Raina would do 10 pages, I'd do 8 pages, you know, she'd do 6 pages, I'd do 8. Whatever.
I actually have some right here.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
Hold on. I gotta give you the screen, Raina. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Do it.
I have to dig them up though. Hold on a sec.
And while you're out of the shot, we'll just count your Eisners in the background.
I think you have more than me. So like, we're doing these rough layouts and tossing them back and forth, and it was an improv, right? I mean, like we're like just tossing the lines back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until it was all in a big blender by the end. Oh, here we go.
Here's just like some Raina thumbnails. Like they're pretty breezy, right?
Yeah.
I'm bad with the back and forth. And then here's a page of Scott thumbnails from like a few spreads later.
Yeah, you see mine are a little bit more anal retentive. And they're more wordy. They're much more wordy.
So you can see that like Raina and Scott are in this draft. This was draft 1, but we were both thumbnailing. And so we'd sort of tackle it like one, you know, chapter per, or like, okay, this is a scene where Scott is going to be tackling a subject that he's going to be really good at, or this is like a character exchange. So I'll tackle that part and we'll just do a few pages each and like throw them back and forth to each other. So we really sort of did tackle the whole book that way, back and forth. And sometimes we knew where we were headed. I mean, we had sort of a good outline before we started, but it really changed a lot. And then after draft 1 was done, we tightened it up and we sent it in, and everybody was like, this is good, but we just need you to change it to be better.
No pressure. Right.
Well, and it was like, it's not quite there, and it needs to be more kid friendly, and it needs to feel more like a Raina book. And that was the feedback. And it was like, okay.
And it wasn't
bad feedback. It was like, what does that mean? What?
I'm going to say, what is that? What is that? And can you even imagine that yourself? Like, oh yeah, it needs to be more like me. Like it's like Hamburger Helper or something. You know, you just like go get a box of you off the shelf. You know.
So, I mean, I was like, I guess I'll write the second draft with what we had, and then I mean, I think I was about 30 pages in when I realized, okay, we have to not be in this. And I realized, all right, everything that we have said can be said, I think, with just the kids, just the librarian character, just like the parents, and just them sort of figuring out for themselves. And then, you know, the magical realism aspects can come from just their dialogue and their interactions with each other. We had a few like side characters and tertiary characters that kind of slipped out of it. We had more kids in the first draft. There was like a 5th character in the story that we sort of just ended up combining, and the 2 characters became one. So, you know, draft 1 and draft 2 looked really different from each other, and then drafts 2 and 3 were just tightening. I mean, I feel like it took us almost 2 years to write the story.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah.
And then for the art, which was also kind of interesting, I drew all of the kids and all of the backgrounds, but then I left a bunch of blank space, and Scott drew everything that came out of the characters' pencils.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Raina drew the kids. I drew what the kids drew.
Yeah. Which was a tall order.
Yeah.
Well, they both were.
For Scott. My part was easy.
But the layout process, which was kind of the heart of it for us, I think for both of us, that's like you're the most comicsy is when you're figuring out where stuff goes, what people are saying, how to break down the moments. And one of the things that harmonized it for us was that I already was a big fan of the way that Raina broke down moments, because Raina did something that previous generations, especially the superhero guys that I came up with, didn't always get. And that was that every time there's a change of emotion or a change of idea, that needs a new panel. Even if it's something as simple as a character just like giving the side eye to another character. or stopping to think for a sec, you know, a silent beat, stuff like that. That deserved its own moment. And that's something that a lot of, you know, if you go back to like old John Byrne X-Men or whatever, that wasn't in there, right? You know, it was just like word balloons where someone to shove as much exposition as possible while they're battling each other in the danger room or whatever, you know, like just the stuff, a whole lot was going in the word. And then you shoved the word balloon way off in the corner. So there was more room for the artwork. It's like, no, that's wrong. So Raina was doing this thing that I also thought this is how comics about people should work. And that is that every time a new thought crosses their mind, that's a moment that deserves its own little rectangle, you know?
So you're expanding, not condensing, because what you're talking about, the old thing was condensing because you've got 22 pages to try to tell your
story. That's right. And that format is not healthy.
I make 220-page books, but they're short stories. Like if I was to translate one of my graphic novels into prose, it would be like 10 pages long. So, it would be over very quickly.
Yeah, if anyone saw The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, that I've read that book. That was one of my favorite books. In fact, I want to do a graphic novel of it. It's a very slender little novella, and they made 6 hours out of it.
Do you find kids stop at those moments? Those wordless panels at that moment of that?
No, that's the good part is they don't stop reading.
Registers and then
but they register it. They totally register it because it means something. It means something. All of a sudden, oh, that character just got an idea, or oh, she likes him. You know, like that's important. That's important information.
You know, it's sort of like when I've been going back through and rewatching all of the Miyazaki stuff because it's
so
there's all these. The one thing about his films that is very consistent and really makes them distinct is there are all these quiet moments.
Yes.
Right. There's a lot of poetry of the little moment in his films. Then there's there's the action and the dramatic stuff. So what you're saying is that Scholastic and people discovered through the process of producing these books that if you expand to contain the quiet moments, that resonates with the viewer more.
Right.
The type of stories that you're telling.
And to be fair to the cartoonists, they discovered it because their cartoonists discovered it first. I mean, like their cartoonists showed it to them, especially Raina.
Yeah, right.
It's like space has meaning. Silence has meaning.
Right.
Beautiful.
You know, these are important things.
Yeah. And I was thinking that might be something that's a little bit of a demarcation of the modern era, even opposed to stuff that was, not that old, but I think that willingness for that to be part of the story, because I think coming up in the era that I came up in, that was not something that they wanted, because if you didn't have that constant tension of connection between panel to panel, you would lose the reader. You only got it in rare things like Jeff Jones' Idol. You remember that stuff?
Oh yes, yeah.
Kind of thing. And maybe in some of the European stuff a little more, because I think that their culture just in general is more poetic. So I think you see that in there, and obviously the Japanese culture is very much all about that aesthetic. You can see it in their woodblock prints and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to think that what was once considered maybe a negative thing, like you would never see a silent panel in Richie Rich comics or something. You know what I mean? That would be like, well, you're not giving the reader their money's worth. You gotta stuff something in there. The sausage has got to be full.
And he has some incredible moments in, let's say, a Tintin graphic novel, like the
Mhm.
the one where they go to the moon, that two-parter. You know, see what the goat created. It's a, anyone who's read it will remember that line. But there's this moment where our scientist, Professor Calculus, was that his name, is like gestures, and you turn the page and you see the rocket that they built, and it's a full page spread. I don't think there's a single word on it. He's Hergé, the creator of the book, is asking you to take it all in, to take in the moment, the biggest possible moment.
Have you seen that page in person?
No, no.
It has whiteout on it.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I think he decided to like scale it differently at some point, and I was like, yes.
I thought you were saying
Harriman on Crazy Cat would actually use an X-Acto knife. I saw one of his originals that looked like a moonscape. Instead when he would put white lines over the artwork, that was because he took an X-Acto and carved out the ink.
He was ripping
That
into
was
it.
the old school. The old guys, all the old guys I knew, they used the razor blade. They did not like to use whiteout if they could use a razor blade.
Yeah.
And the paper was good enough that you could actually do it, not like the paper we got now, right? You could actually. Now, when you guys are doing, it's funny you were showing those layouts, because when I would teach a cartooning class, that's what I would do. I would get the kids to draw their first little pass with the word balloon and the art, so they could see how it fit together and how important it was to consider both, rather than draw your really cool thing and then like, oh shit, now I got to cover it all up because I got to put these word balloons on. And then I guess really when you're reading it back and forth, if you feel it works there, you know it's you can make a better drawing, but a better drawing won't make it work. Or right. So when did you decide to draw what the kids draw? Or did you originally think like one was going to draw it and one was going to ink it, or did you go through that, or did you decide that right from the very beginning?
It was pretty early, right?
Wait, when we were going
who was going to draw what? When we were the division of labor between you and me, Raina. I think it was pretty early that we kind of knew. We knew that it was going to be layouts back and forth. I think pretty early we knew I'd draw the kids stuff, and then
I think so. I mean, I knew I didn't want to ink this project on my own, and I hired a friend of mine to do that. And I think that was just for economy. And I was curious to try working with a different inker. Just so I was like, is this a way I could be sustainable in my future work? I'm not sure.
Right.
And the answer was yes. Because inking is my favorite part of the project, or any project, but it's the worst on my hand. And then I don't remember how we came up with the idea of Scott doing the drawings. I think I was just like, do you want to try this, Scott? And you were like, it was intimidating for you. You were like, I can't draw like a talented 13-year-old.
Oh, well, this is a very specific thing. Is we had the character of Linda was this unusually gifted young kid. So she had a lot of natural talent, but she didn't have a lot of experience. And I'm a cartoonist without a whole lot of natural talent, but with more experience. So I had to impersonate my opposite. So I was very scared, and I talked for a little while about maybe we could get somebody like Vera Brosgol or Jen Wang or somebody to come in and do Linda's artwork, and in the end I was just like, no, I just buckled down and tried to create this sort of faux watercolor stuff. And I found one of the things that helped me was that her perspective was not like traditional perspective. It was sort of that kind of flat kid-like perspective, and that helped a bit, because she could have all of the emotional weight of the ideas in her head and the story she was trying to tell, but then it would have a kind of flatness to it. But it was still, but the artwork was still good. I don't know. It was. I hope it works, but boy, was that hard. That was one of the hardest things I've ever
It's hard to draw like a kid. Everybody thinks it's easy to draw like a kid, but it's not.
It's tricky.
It's not. And if you've taught kids, you realize that every kid doesn't draw like that cliche way we think kids draw. because you know, some kids draw pretty good at 13 for a 13-year-old, and some draw like an 8-year-old, right? It's not like, you know, like when everybody does the fake turkey hand or whatever. Drawing of
I love the turkey hand.
Right.
But I think in this case, the most important thing was just like suspension of disbelief. Like the kid reading the book is not going to get as hung up on this as we, the creators, are.
Right.
What they need to see when they open this on a random page is Linda drew this. Okay, Michaela drew this one.
Right.
You know, like Howard drew that one. Like the styles just need to be distinctive enough from each other's work that they can tell whether it's a different color palette, whether it's they clearly used a different tool from their friend. Like that's the only thing that matters.
Well, there are a couple other things though.
Okay.
The comics had to make the reader laugh.
Well, yes,
right? There had to be parts that were, so they had to be genuinely funny to a kid, right? And we were talking about like Dave Pilkey has that gift of just like knowing what's funny for kids, even when you, I don't even know what is that thing he just drew? Who knows? Whatever. But that was important. And then there were times when it had to be emotionally effective too.
Yeah.
And that's a tricky thing to get right. So it was like, but you're absolutely right. That suspension of disbelief. Kids are already in dream time, right? And this is why we could do the fourth wall stuff that's in the book, where the kids start talking about the panels and walking outside the panels and talking about themselves as drawings on a page. And like there was that question, and I think we had a discussion with our editors, like, is that going to make it hard for the kids, for the readers to identify with them? And it's like, no, not for a kid, because a kid can keep two thoughts in their heads at the same time. And it's like, they're drawings on a page, they're characters in a comic, but they still have souls, they still have personalities, they still have hearts.
This will be a great time to try to get these questions in, because the time has melted away, you guys. Right?
Let's do it.
Where'd the time go? All right, you guys ready? Lightning round, question palooza time. So what's going to happen here is Stone Cold Steve Conley is going to read you questions. Please give us concise, quick answers, but give it some air.
You bet. It's a jump ball. Whoever wants to pick these questions up. But
we'll be stumbling over each other.
We'll start with KT Artley. KT Artley on George Gant we'll start with. All right.
What up, George Gant?
On the YouTube. When it comes to school tours, do you have any say on which schools you may want to visit? Selfishly asking as someone who'd love to have more cartoonists visit his kids' schools.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We haven't been visiting a ton of schools on our tours. Usually I visit schools outside of tours. My
first school visits were in Alaska with Raina. And I was actually happy to just take whatever came my way. I follow Raina. Basically, whatever Raina does, I'm 6 steps behind, and that makes my life simpler.
It's a good rule of thumb.
Thank you for the question, George. KT Artley on the YouTube asks, did you hit one, Jamar? I don't know.
I didn't touch anything.
What are your opinions on manga's success in America?
Oh, yes. And there was a time when people were not accepting of manga in the comics industry. Not all of them. But Raina and I both, I think, like Raina was one of those kids sitting cross-legged in Barnes & Noble, I guess, to some degree. Yeah. Or at least cross-legged reading for better or for worse. But yeah, I always thought manga is just another word for comics. And I was fascinated by manga. And I was fascinated by the differences in storytelling between manga and comics. So I welcome that. And to me, it was all the same art form. And I kept saying, hey, just wait 10, 20 years. And the kids reading these things, they're going to tell their own stories. And they did.
Beautiful. Thank you for the question, KT.
Was Raina going to, or are you guys going to go back and forth? Okay, sounds good. All right.
Sorry.
All right. Tim Fielder on Facebook. Hey, Tim, asks, I wonder if you guys could speak to the impact of Calvin Reed.
He's amazing. Oh my gosh. Talk about like journalists who have managed to like connective tissue, like journalism and comics, and made them meet and legitimized us to people that are like, we're not so sure. He's also just the nicest.
Absolutely. Calvin was one of the very first people that Judy, our agent, introduced me to. Right after my book was Understanding Comics suddenly was a book in the book world, and Publishers Weekly did a special thing that I got to write and draw a little comic about comics to an industry that was still starting to take it all in. And Calvin was there. And Calvin, I went up to the offices, and Calvin was, hey, Calvin, he's the comics guy. And I got to meet these people when they were young, before they were like these pillars on Mount Rushmore of the comics industry. I knew Calvin when we were the Young Turks, the moles, the ones trying to infiltrate the system. And he did it. He's one of the most important of those moles. Calvin or Lucy Shelton over at OSU, or there were really key people early on, and Calvin was absolutely right at the top of that list.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tim. On YouTube, we have Seamus Bialy. Has Scott and Raina moved fully to drawing digitally, or do they still use analog tools? A mix of both?
Good question. Mix of both. I was fully analog until about 3 years ago. Now I'm using Procreate for layouts, pencils, paper, sometimes ink to do the in-between, and then Clip Studio to do kind of the finishing parts of the work.
I've been all digital for 24 years.
Wow.
Although I still have my big, heavy Cintiq, whereas Raina is a true new generation. Yeah, you sit up there on the airplane drawing on your iPad.
Yes, I do.
I'm not that cool.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Seamus. Going through the list, we got a few more here. Well, just a comment. Michael, the two books that were my Bible for comics were How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way and Understanding Comics. Thank you, Scott. I think he speaks for a lot of us.
Yes, and thank you, John Buscema and Stan Lee, too, actually. And How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, when it was sort of the only book out there, a lot of people kind of made fun of it, but I always thought, hey, it really delivers. It delivers on the title, and there are still some real insights in there. And Buscema was just such a terrific artist and understood so much as well. Yeah, I'm glad that book was there, and I'm glad I got to tell a whole different story.
And Michael follows up with this question: how has AI affected the children's book field?
Artists are not big fans of AI art. Yeah, it's. I will only add that AI is a much more nuanced and complicated issue in my eyes, because I sort of studied it for a while, even did some explainers. But if anyone wants to just treat it as the Antichrist, as something to avoid at all costs, I don't think any harm will come to them. It's there's no harm in just saying AI, never, forget it. It's evil. That's cool.
Yeah.
Do it.
I can tell you that our cool, awesome, smart editors at Scholastic are not going to acquisitions meetings and going, hey, it's awesome, this AI generated picture book that I just found on Amazon.com. So they're not publishing those books. So someone is, but not them. So there's still a place for you, human person, who is watching this.
Yes.
Instead.
Yeah, Six Finger Sally books aren't really on the acquisition list this year. So.
Well, I mean, but do you guys think that, or are you concerned at all that someone could use AI and go, make it in your style, kind of a thing?
Well, people are already.
Are they doing
that already? Are they already saying, make it
out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monsters. Monsters.
What else we got?
And Paul Pate, the YouTube for Scott, with Cartoonist Club, did you set out to make something as groundbreaking as Understanding Comics?
I would have been happy to make something as groundbreaking as Raina's last few books. I mean, it's just the thing is that Raina saw it right away, is that there was an audience that needed this. It's a blessing to be able to work on anything that the lack of which after the fact becomes so obvious that, like, you know, why didn't we have this? It's like word processors. Like, what you mean you have to retype the entire paper because you made a typo? What the hell? You know, like, it's like they're like real progress is something that makes everything before it seemed barbaric in retrospect. And I think, you know, like, it's just like, how is it that this book didn't exist before this? You know, we needed this book. And so it was groundbreaking, but mostly it was just, we knew what it could do, and we knew what it would do if we did screw up. So I hope we didn't screw up. I think we didn't screw up.
Beautiful. And our last question, this is right for Raina. Raina, gosh, I picked up the Raina. Does Raina have a channel?
Yeah.
What's a channel?
I assume that would be like
do you have a Twitch or
YouTube.
a YouTube channel or any place people can see you doing videos? Do you have a TikTok, Raina?
Are you doing the cinnamon challenge?
No, I'm sorry. I mean, my handle is Go Raina. I have an Instagram. I rarely do anything where I'm talking, so you have to wait until these guys invite me on again, which will probably be in another 4 to 7 years. I don't know. Busy making comics.
Oh, I love it.
Sorry.
Yeah, Paul Pate says Raina has books. That's
I have
how
books. There you go.
Books.
That's how we
make books.
That's beautiful. Well,
All right.
that's a lightning palooza.
That's it.
All right,
guys, we did it. And
Yeah.
our buddy in the chat, Keaton, wants to say hello to you, Raina. So please say hi to Keaton.
Hi, Keaton.
There you go. We did it.
Yay.
Thank you, Keaton. Keaton's blowing up the chat with questions. Like, we got to get these guys out of here. Guys, I'm going to let you go, but I want to just kind of wrap this up by saying, I think we all walk on the shoulders of giants, and it's cool that we're all kind of giants at the same time. It's weird to say it. I don't want to sound like a flex, but it's like, we're all kind of part of history in the present. And it's really great that I can say that you guys are friends and colleagues. And, I want to make sure you guys get your flowers, not from a bunch of 70-year-olds, because they all love Raina and now Scott, but just as another professional. And real quick, I want to say that I've been talking to people lately who've said things to me that have been really sweet, like, holy crap, Jamar, you get to live your dream, right? And then now you guys are at the point where you've already have dreams, you've lived dreams, now you're creating new dreams for yourself. So, and you guys have made the career, the lifestyle of cartooning, a real thing that you can touch. So I'm really appreciative of you guys being on the channel with us tonight.
Thank you, Jamar.
Sorry, that was a lot of spaghetti, but I just had to.
No,
I think it needs to be said sometimes that, like, this job can be every bit as great a life as it sounds. It really can be a wonderful way to live.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Raina, you got anything for us before we get out of here?
I'm just happy to know you all. Thank you for having us and thank you for sharing space with us.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. And I'll look forward to bugging you in another 7 years, Raina, to get you.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have a channel by then.
All right. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna let you guys go, and we're gonna wrap up the show. But Raina and Scott, thank you so much, and enjoy the.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, Scott. Yeah, that was great. Thank you guys. That was a really fantastic show, and what a cool thing to be in a space where I've been saying for 5 years, Mike. You're in concert with expert Pinch Me, I Must Be Dreaming cartoonists. So even like somebody asked me earlier on in the week, like, who's going to be on the show? Like, that's nobody ask me how I'm doing. They're like, who's the guest this week?
You're old news. Like, what's the new meat this week?
Yeah, I was like, Raina and Scott. They're like, what? So I'm glad that we could still surprise you. We're so full of surprises, but I appreciate that. And just like I said, both of these people are like living icons in our industries. You know, I was going to say this to Raina, but I didn't want to embarrass her. It kind of like Brian Lee O'Malley a couple of weeks ago. There are people in the world, in the new generation, that want to draw like Brian Lee O'Malley, that learn to draw comics like Raina. You know what I mean? And that's real. You know what I'm saying? So to be able to just kind of dial them up or text Raina and see what she had for dinner, it's fantastic. Yeah, we're gonna have Tothorn next week. It's fantastic. Thanks a lot. So you know, I guess we can start wrapping this up, but I wonder if my co-hosts have any kind of like last words for this episode. Like, Steve, what are you thinking about right now?
They're both these linchpin cartoonists who like had a serious impact on probably on the direction of comics. Like when they came, like they're like inflection points in comics. We talk about that with guys like Neil Adams, you know, that they change the direction. Their presence and the work that they've done changes the direction of comics. And Scott and Raina are both like that. They both have that. There's like before Raina and after, before Scott and after. And you could just see that DNA from that point in so many cartoonists that have followed. And man, they're just such, and they're such lovely people too.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I think is that they're lovely, approachable, nice people. You know, I think that's also important, and probably, you know, when you think about it, if you meet people that are not nice, it always comes back to bite them at some point. I think in their talent too. That aspect, you know, because you know we talked about some of the old bitter cartoonists. If you're old and bitter, it's hard to make really good work.
And Scholastic finds these great cartoonists who are also wonderful ambassadors for the medium. I count you in that. Yeah, absolutely, Jamar Nicholas.
Thank you.
100%. 100%.
Always going out and making the children cry.
Thank you so much. That's so great. America's Tom Zolishers, they're great and talented. I hate that. I love it. I love a nice love grudge. That's fantastic.
And you know, and speaking of I hate that, this was the 75th anniversary this week of Charlie Brown. Peanuts.
Wow, that's fantastic, and that's a nice little go-to because at the end of the month we're going to have Benjamin Clark on, who is the head curator of the Schultz Museum. So we're all thinking in the same direction, Mike. So we're going to get to talk to him about the mega impact that Peanuts and Schultz has had on the globe. How cool!
Yeah, I mean, you can't think of comics with. We can't imagine a time when those characters didn't exist.
Yeah, that's why meeting someone, thinking you can meet Charles Schultz is like, I'm going to meet the person who invented baseball. It's like, it's like Peanuts is everywhere. It's like,
but it really is hard to imagine that there was a time when comic strips were king, and that strip was not
right.
That was a real changing of the strips, a real change, a real pivot. We forget how far back it was now, you know, in the 50s, but the 50s was a big pivot for comics as a whole, comic books and comic strips, you know, and I think part of the pivot in the 50s was that TV came in. And when TV came in, the kind of drama that people got used to reading and mostly in comic strips or seeing on the radio or hearing on the radio came on TV. And that really changed, especially when strips like Peanuts came in. Because it was even different than like Cats and Jammer Kids or a lot of the old, quote unquote, Bigfoot strips. You know, the fact that it had that psychological aspect to it, you know, was really radically different. It really did change the face of comic strips.
Yeah, I'm really excited about having Benjamin on. And it was funny because I was driving home and the local, I guess the news radio channel here in Philly had a little audio blurb of Benjamin talking about the 75th anniversary. I was like, oh, yo, I was already thinking about calling this guy. And here he is on my radio. How cool is that? So again, it's just another great part of what this channel and what we're doing in the landscape to bring you guests like this, right? So we're all access, you guys. And did I ask you, Mike, what you thought of the episode, or we just kind of like leaned into something else, or did I get everybody?
Well, I mean, I think again, this was sort of our mission statement about why we're doing this podcast, right? Because I think cross all the streams, that's what I was interested in going all the way back in doing the magazine. I always tried to cover a lot of different types of cartooning, and I think that's to me what I'm excited about doing on the podcast, is talking to about all the different aspects of comics and cartooning. It's a really broad field. I think people can sort of get in their little channels and think it's just about superheroes or just about manga or whatever, but it's probably broader than it has ever been.
Yeah,
I think in a way. I think it is really finally, now that I think about it, to me, it's really a global medium now.
Yeah.
Where people are also aware in real time of what people are doing around the world in the medium, right? And that's not just in print, but also what people are doing on the web.
Right.
And I think that is something that previous generations didn't have, certainly with the web, but also, you go back 30 years even, you weren't as aware of all the stuff that they were doing in Japan, all the stuff they were doing in Europe, because it wasn't as easy to get it. Like I remember getting some of the Mobius graphic novels and starting to get some of the European stuff when I moved out east. Right? And that stuff was already old, right? Right. And I was getting when I was first buying my first reprints of stuff. Well, when you were seeing the stuff in heavy metal, when I was a teenager, that stuff was already old.
Yeah.
Right.
That was already that was even like a decade older. Right. So now we're all aware of what each other are doing, like in real time. And that was not always the way that it was, like when the European guys are getting influenced by Crumb and the underground guys and Corbin, it would take a while for that stuff to go from America overseas and influence the guys who did, Metal Hurlant.
Right. Oh, I like the way you said that. That just flowed. I don't know.
Right. But again, it took a while for the stuff to seep. Right. It didn't happen. Now it happens like immediately. Like when somebody announces a graphic novel and they put it on, I'm constantly seeing new stuff from people in France or wherever. It's right on Facebook. It's in real time. But when I was a kid coming up, that book could have come out and I might not have even known about it for 10 years.
You saw it in the back of Bud Plant, right?
Right. Yeah. And you go like, what is it? And you would see one little picture, right? You didn't see like a whole thing, a whole layout. So
right.
I think that in 20 years is gonna create a lot of really interesting new cartoonists.
I didn't get to ask Scott if this is a prequel to Understanding Comics.
Oh wow, I didn't think about that. That's interesting. But also to the fact that we can have content like this and just out there for the masses to enjoy. Yeah, so it'll be cool to think of, like, you know, with the new Bibles for kids might still be How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, Understanding Comics, and Cartoonist Club. I also wanted to say, I was going to say it while Scott was on here. My favorite of that trinity of those books that Scott put out is Making Comics. I think Making Comics is really, really strong. Understanding is great on an academic sense and just kind of like figuring out how the little gears in a wristwatch of comics works. Right. But the Making one is probably like my favorite out of those. You know, and I hope that everybody out there in the internet age is still picking up books to read about this stuff. You know, and not just watch
books.
Just not watching YouTube tutorials. YouTube tutorials on how to draw Iron Man shiny. You know. Yeah. So, all right, guys, we're gonna start to.
I wanted to say that I haven't seen anybody. I haven't seen any come through my feed of any of the 24-hour comic book day. So I'm wondering if anybody.
Did that happen? Does that happen?
It was last weekend.
Oh, I didn't even hear about that. Last weekend was wild. There was like 900 conventions at the same day.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering if anybody, because I didn't. I wanted to do something, but I was too busy making comics.
Yeah.
But I did come up with a story idea that I still think that I will do, and I might team up with somebody else to do it.
Okay.
I think of stories all the time that I literally just don't have the time to draw because I'm already drawing 2 scripts. But I think of stories all the time.
Yeah, I love it. You can't turn the faucet off.
Well, you can't stop the one faucet to turn on the other faucet.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, it's like I wish I was 4 of me to do all the things I want to do, literally.
Yeah, I know.
Like sometimes I'll actually dream a comic, and I wake up and I'll have like a whole comic and a whole story in my head, you know. But there's like literally no way right now with my workload I could actually sit down and draw it.
Right.
You guys ever do that? You ever dream a comic, wake up and have a story in your head?
Yeah, I do, but I don't. I usually just lose it. You know, I mean, no, it's true. I think of things and I go, that'd be neat.
Draw them and send it to Rick Veitch. He'll include it in his Rare Bit Fiends.
Yeah, what are we doing? We're just wasting this content.
Have you ever like thumbed out a story that you dreamed about?
No, it's I can't get the likeness rights.
Nice. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you. And also thank you for all the superstar people that hang out in our chat.
Luminaries.
Yeah. I was telling Raina and Scott in the green room how, like, what do I say, Steve? That the chat is lousy. It's lousy with cartoonists.
Change it to thick with cartoonists.
With 2 C's. It's
framing.
It's dummy thick with cartoonists. You know, and this is what it's all about. And I'm glad that there's a forum for you guys.
Too bad we don't have like one of those things in Zoom now where you have a whiteboard. If there was a whiteboard for this room, then all the cartoons would draw.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is. Yeah, you know, and StreamYard keeps making new improvements. They haven't done that yet, but
that would be awesome. If we could have a whiteboard
doing some exquisite corpses on there. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was going to say one more thing and I'm forgetting. But no, this was a great get. And I think if anybody at this point is going, dude, how'd you get? Don't ask that, because how many times have I told you guys there were 3 expert pinch me? I must be dreaming cartoonists. Nobody's lying to you. This is what it is.
These are your coworkers, right, Jamar?
Yeah.
I know them from work.
Yeah, they're my friends from work. Right, that's perfect. That's so perfect. But all right, guys, we got to get it going. Thank you so much. I know a lot of you guys are heading into New York Comic Con. It's a big weekend for everybody. What'd you say? Don't talk to me.
Don't touch anything.
Don't touch anyone. And
you're gonna get it. You're gonna get bumps.
Steve, are you going to New York?
No, I'm still suffering from my little. No conventions for me for the rest of the year, but I hope everyone's travels safe and sells out.
Yeah, guys, we're living in the end of times, right? Wasn't there like an Angela Bassett movie where they're like had Mad Max face paint or something like that, and there was people holding flares?
What I'm going for is Halloween. Mad Max face paint.
The Langoliers is happening outside.
I had a dream like that. I should have drawn it.
You should have drawn it.
That's right.
You should have drawn it. God, before we head out,
you got mini Snickers. You didn't even get full size Snickers.
Before we get out of here, George Gant just said something in the chat about telling his community of cartoonists to come check out the show. Yes, please do that. Don't keep pencil to pencil to yourself. Don't hoard it. This. You have to share this with your constituents.
Subscribe. If you're new, go right now and smash that subscribe button.
Yes, please, because I think we're kissing 2,000 subs at this point, and
lips are sore.
Pause.
Pause. All right, guys, that's enough. I've said my bit. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you again to Raina and Scott for being on, and thank you to my lovely co-hosts. I couldn't go into the trenches with anybody else, so thank you guys for all you do. And thank you guys, and we'll see you here next week. I don't know who we're going to have on, but you'll be the next person to know once we figure it out. Guys, let's wash some Kirby hands and go home. We'll see you next week.
Draw some Kirby hands.
Oh, those are good, Steve. Good job. All right, guys, we'll see you in the funnies. Take care.